Hey guys, what's going on? Back here for a review of a game that came out sooner, and I mean much sooner than I think we all expected. I'm here to review Resident Evil 3 Remake. As you can imagine, the remake of Resident Evil 3. Before I go on with the review, if you guys have not seen my review of Resident Evil 2 Remake, I'll put the link in the description below, but I loved that game so much. It was the only 10 out of 10 I gave last year, and not only that, it's my favorite Resident Evil along with 4. It was one of my favorite games of the past decade, and it's also one of my favorite games in general. So, as you can imagine, when they announced the remake for 3, I got immediately excited. And actually, like the original Resident Evil 2, I had not beaten the original Resident Evil 3, so like with Resident Evil 2 Remake, I was playing Resident Evil 3 Remake with new eyes. And when I played the demo, it got me even more excited, and the demo gave me the impression that it could be even better than Resident Evil 2 Remake. Though I will not lie, I was a little worried when I heard it's a game that you should wait till it goes down in price, with some saying it was also disappointing. So, I finally got and played the game. Now, what did I think of Resident Evil 3 Remake? Well, Resident Evil 3 Remake is a good, if not a really good time, but it is a game that I do have some thoughts about. Starting off with the plot, in Resident Evil 3 Remake, you mainly play as Jill Valentine, who was also in Resident Evil 1, and you're trying to get out of Raccoon City as it's being destroyed, and while doing so, a bioweapon named Nemesis is on your ass. Along the way, you come across Carlos Oliveira, who is doing a search and rescue mission. And that's pretty much all you have to know. Now, starting off, one thing that I really appreciated about the story of Resident Evil 3 Remake is that this game starts you off right in the center of the action, and a really cool FPS view with a very creepy part before getting you back into third person where shit just hits the fan. It's intense, suspenseful, and very cinematic, especially when Nemesis chases you at first. But I'll get into that later. Now, one thing I gotta mention, of course, about this game, and that's that Resident Evil 3 Remake is a gorgeous looking game. Now, Resident Evil 2 Remake looked amazing, and it still does, but wow. Resident Evil 3 Remake definitely kicks it up a notch, especially with the details in character models, the details in the costumes, and of course, the lighting. The lighting alone does such a great job of setting up the classic atmosphere we all know and love from Resident Evil. I was genuinely blown away by how some areas looked, especially with the neon lighting in the beginning areas. And the gameplay has been improved in a small way as well. For the most part, it is using the same gameplay from Resident Evil 2 Remake with the over-the-shoulder camera, but there are 3 main differences, one that I will mention in my cons. The first being a dodge button. This was a mechanic that I foolishly thought that I didn't need at first. But trust me guys, in certain situations, this is something that will save your ass on multiple occasions like it did for me. For Jill, you're simply just getting out of the way, but if you time it just right, she does a really nice dodge roll. However, for Carlos, his isn't a dodge, but him elbowing a zombie instead. But time his just right, and he knocks an enemy right out, which never got old. One particular part of the gameplay that I thought was improved tenfold was the knife durability. In Resident Evil 2 Remake, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, while I did appreciate that the knives did have enough durability to last more than a few swipes, Resident Evil 3 Remake now makes your knives essentially indestructible, and this was something that I really appreciated. Otherwise, the combat and gameplay remain pretty similar, and by the way, a tip when fighting Nemesis, especially in the early stages of the game, take him down with a grenade and he'll drop a weapon upgrade, and trust me, this will help tenfold in the long run. In terms of style though, this is obviously a much different game than Resident Evil 2 Remake was. Resident Evil 2 Remake maintains the claustrophobic feel while still keeping a nice balance between action, survival horror though, more emphasis on the survival horror, and puzzle solving. And Resident Evil 3 Remake, the puzzle element is pretty much non-existent along with the claustrophobic element in some ways too. Though there are some parts where it does have that element, but otherwise, Resident Evil 3 Remake is a much bigger game. And Resident Evil 3 Remake does retain the action and survival horror aspects, but this time it leans a tad bit more onto the action side. And I won't lie, for the most part, like I mentioned, this game is a good, if not a really good time. It's essentially a roller coaster ride that gives you straight up thrills with some horror elements to it. Also, another thing to comment on is the sound design. The sound in this game, like with Resident Evil 2 Remake, is damn terrific. From how the zombies sound, the guns, along with the ambiance of Raccoon City, the sound does a terrific job of showcasing the crumbling city, along with the amazing visuals that is Raccoon City. Also, something else that I gotta mention is the voice acting, particularly with Nicole Tompkins, who voices Jill Valentine. I thought she did an excellent job of bringing this badass character to life, and there were more than a few times where I just thought, hell yeah, from how she delivered her lines. And the voice for Carlos Oliveira, Jeff Shine, I thought did a great job as well. Now, of course, the main aspect about this game. Is Resident Evil 3 Remake scary? My answer to that is yes, but also no. Like I had mentioned before, Resident Evil 3 Remake leans more towards the action than it does towards the horror aspect. Though don't get me wrong, there were more than a few times where I was quite scared, particularly with a set piece that involves Jill powering on generators that has bugs, along with the first time you come across Nemesis. Though the reason why I say no as well is that Resident Evil 3 Remake, to me at least, came off more suspenseful than the more terrifying Resident Evil 2 Remake. Now, it's not entirely a bad thing, but like I mentioned beforehand, it definitely feels more suspenseful than scary. Now, unfortunately, I must say, did I love this game like I loved Resident Evil 2 Remake? No. In a couple of areas, I gotta say, I was quite disappointed with Resident Evil 3 Remake. First of which being the actual campaign of the game. For the most part, Resident Evil 3 Remake is a really good time, but there were more than a few times where I felt like stuff was missing from the game. I had mentioned beforehand that I had not been in the original Resident Evil 3, but a lot of people have said that in Resident Evil 3 Remake, there were a couple of things that were cut from this game, unlike the original release, and I gotta say, it shows. Particularly a part with the clock tower that after hearing about it so much, I would have loved to experience this in the remake. And something else I had seen in the original was that there are a couple of choices that you can make throughout the game, but unfortunately in the remake, that is not the case here. Resident Evil 3 Remake is a straight shoot with no forks in the road, and something that disappoints me even further is knowing that the developers behind Resident Evil 3 Remake say that this is a complete game. But honestly, it doesn't feel complete. Another thing that disappointed me, surprisingly, was Nemesis, actually. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I wasn't expecting Nemesis to be exactly like Mr. X from Resident Evil 2 Remake, but the way he was executed here kind of let me down. Nemesis, honestly, doesn't show up much during the campaign itself, only in certain parts. In the beginning, he starts chasing you mercilessly, but after you get out of that first section, he'll just show up randomly during scripted sections. What I loved about Mr. X in the Resident Evil 2 remake was that he was this constant threat that appears after you get halfway through the game, and what I thought was even more brilliant about his execution was that after he shows up, you have to be constantly listening to his footsteps to know when it's safe to move, which add this amazing element of tension and suspense, where here in the Resident Evil 3 remake with Nemesis, he just shows up here and there, and after a while, I won't lie, it got kind of annoying. And Nemesis as well, not to mention, he's one cheap bastard. I mean, don't get me wrong, the character design for Nemesis was amazing, but the execution was not so stellar. Another thing that I'll say about Resident Evil 3 Remake is that it feels like a much more linear game despite taking place in more open areas. Now, while Resident Evil 2 Remake, you are in a police station for the most part, it did feel way more open than Resident Evil 3 Remake did. And because of the more linear game, it felt even more scripted, though I will not lie, that's more of a nitpick. One thing that threw me off was the length of the game itself too. The night that I got the game, I played Resident Evil 3 Remake for about 2 to 2.5 hours. The next morning when I played it, I beat it after 4 more hours of gameplay. I beat Resident Evil 3 Remake in just under 7 hours, which is a really short game. For Resident Evil 2 Remake, it took me just about 9 hours to complete. But keep in mind, guys, that was for Leon's campaign. Remember how I mentioned Resident Evil 3 Remake is a roller coaster ride? That's pretty much what the game is. It takes you on this thrill ride before it just ends. It threw me off a little bit because I had gotten into a certain area of the game and I thought, whoa, hold up here. Am I already near the end of the game? And it turned out I was. Now, I have heard that the original Resident Evil 3 was an already short game. But why make a short game shorter? And here's the thing, guys. I don't mind short games as long as there's high replay value, and that's another issue with Resident Evil 3 Remake that I had. One of the most important things about a game for me is the replay value. With Resident Evil 2 Remake, the moment I beat it, I immediately wanted to jump back in. With Resident Evil 3 Remake, however, even though this game is a good time, it's a game that I don't see myself replaying like I did with Resident Evil 2 Remake. And by the way, I'm playing the game for my 5th time, so that just tells you right there. One other thing that I'm mixed on as well is the multiplayer mode, which is Resident Evil Resistance. Having an online multiplayer Resident Evil is an awesome idea. Now, for Resident Evil Resistance, you're either on the side of the survivors trying to complete objectives going into the next area, or you're the mastermind who is either trying to slow down the survivors, or you're trying to kill them so that they won't complete the level. As you can see here from my mastermind gameplay, I'm not great, but there's no doubt that it's actually fun, and the survivor part can be fun as well, depending on your team members. But honestly, guys, the servers for this mode aren't the greatest. Now, Capcom, please hear me out. Please, and I mean, please do a remake or make a new Resident Evil Outbreak. Please. So overall, is Resident Evil 3 Remake a bad game? No. But is it a great game? No. Resident Evil 3 is definitely a good time, if not, like I said, a really good time. But I won't lie when I say that I was a tad bit disappointed with this. Resident Evil 3 Remake basically feels like full price DLC for Resident Evil 2 Remake. All in all, I'm going to give Resident Evil 3 Remake a 7 out of 10. Resident Evil 3 Remake is a really fun roller coaster ride, but it's a roller coaster ride that could have been even better than it was. And if I were you guys, I would wait to buy this game until it's low on sale price. Alrighty guys, and that is going to wrap it up for my review of Resident Evil 3 Remake. Please comment down and let me know below. What did you guys think? Did you guys like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or were you disappointed by this game? Let me know below. If you guys want to follow me on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. I'm also on Snapchat and Stardust. So if you guys want to follow me on all those social media platforms, all the links and the usernames are in the description below. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Resident Evil 3 Remake. If so, please hit that like button, also subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell for whenever a new video of mine goes live. If you guys want to see any of my previous 2 reviews, please click either the left or right side of the screen. And of course, until my next review, I will see you all next time.